Now you might say, well, the study from Cialdini and colleagues, it's a really old study. It took place about 40 years ago. Today's society is more enlightened. We are exposed to so many persuasion and influence tactics, so we probably learned not to fall for the door in the face technique. Unfortunately, we still fall for the door in the face technique, and this could be shown in a replication of the classical study from Cialdini. This replication was conducted by Brigitte Leca and colleagues in 2009, and the title of the study was Group Status and Reciprocity Norms. Can the door in the face effect be obtained in an outgroup context? It's a very interesting study because they not only replicated the classical study, but they also try to figure out whether it makes a difference if the requester is regarded as in-group member or out-group member. Because that's a classical finding in social psychology as well. If we have the feeling that someone belongs to the same group, to our group, for example, fan of the same football team, or smokers and non-smokers, or college students and business school students. If we have the feeling that the one we are talking to somehow belongs to our group, we have a preference for this person. And therefore in this study, in their second experiment, they asked 180 students, just like in the classical study, whether they were willing to chaperone juvenile offenders on a trip to the zoo, which would take 2 hours on one afternoon. And in the door in the face condition, they first put out an extreme request, which again was whether they would be willing to take care of the juvenile offenders 2 times a week for 2 years. But this time they also varied the look and the behavior of the requester. So in the in-group condition, the requester was obviously a student, which was wearing usual student clothing like normal jeans, sport shoes, t-shirt, etc. And on the behavioral level, they used the informal you to speak to the participant, whereas in the outgroup member condition, the requester used the formal you. I know in English there is only you, so it's difficult to explain, but in French, just like in German, there are different forms of you, and one is more formal and one is more informal. But they did not only change the way they spoke, they also changed the clothing. This time they were a bit more sharply dressed than the typical university student, so they were wearing a suit, elegant shoes, and the males were wearing a tie. And they also introduced themselves as students belonging to a private business school. So it was absolutely obvious, this guy, this girl is definitely not from our university. He or she is an outgroup member. And it turned out that under these conditions, the compliance rates were also influenced. So the most effective influence technique was a combination of the door in the face technique and the presentation as a in-group member.